My name is Jonathan Decker. I am living the dream. I'm married to an absolutely stunning woman who has a higher sex drive than me. So what am I complaining about? We're actually going to get really raw and really real today because there's a lot of male shame around this particular subject. And you would think that it would just lead to nonstop awesomeness, but it's been hard for us. So here we go. Thanks for joining us. I'm laying myself bare for you people. I love you. Hope you appreciate it.
Vulnerability is courage.
I know, but I feel like going fetal and rocking. Mended light. So what do you do when one partner has a higher sex drive than another? The fact is, this is common. This is every day. The issue is that in heterosexual relationships, it is largely the female who has the lower sex drive and the lower sex interest relative to the male. And we've kind of accepted this as normal. And, there's not really a lot of shame around that particular subject. There's a lot of struggle. There's a lot of hardship in a lot of relationships because of that. But what happens when it's the male? There's a lot of expectations about masculinity. There's a lot of hurt and heartache for the female. And of course we could talk about LGBT relationships, but I'm not really qualified to talk about that, but that it exists there too. We're going to go very personal today. Are you ready?
Sure.
That sounded confident. We're going to go very personal today with the hope that it helps somebody. So first of all, I identify as something called demisexual, which is cool because they didn't have a name for this when I was growing up. Look, when we were growing up, I like to say that that sexuality was like soft serve ice cream flavors. They're basically 3 flavors. Okay. There's vanilla and there's chocolate and there's swirl, right? Growing up, like there's straight, there's gay, and there's bi. That was life in the 80s and 90s for us. And now it's like 31 flavors. And when I say now it's like 31 flavors, the fact is those flavors always existed. We didn't have names for them. There were a lot of people who didn't know where they fit in. I identify as demisexual, which means that I am only sexually attracted to somebody that I am emotionally attached to. And I didn't have casual relationships. I tried it once, and it turned into a romantic relationship because I couldn't even...
And it turned into commitment.
And it turned into commitment, like I couldn't even...
You couldn't even date without commitment.
Well, so this episode is not for children, just so you know. But there were several times where I had a difficulty getting aroused if I was kissing someone, if I didn't feel like an emotional connection. Like if the emotional connection was lacking, then I'd kiss them and I just wouldn't feel anything. There wouldn't be a lot of passion there. You came into our relationship with a lot of passion.
What?
Well, and that comes in part with what we call the closer personality. Closers are very driven. They're very motivated. They're very strong-willed. And a lot of men tend to be closers. And for closers, sexuality is a huge part of a relationship.
Well, and quite often, men are socialized to be that way.
Yes.
Even though that is
whether they are naturally or not,
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So it is the genetic tendency, but it's also the cultural socialization.
So for closers and for a lot of men, if there is sex, then I feel loved. Whereas for a lot of what we call the healer personality type, which happens to be a lot of women, but again, a lot of socialization.
Right.
For healer personality types, I need to feel loved in order to feel sexual, right? And so I came into our relationship, obviously, I have a sexual side, and I was excited for that aspect of my life. But we had some hardship over the years, and I don't know how deep we want to get into this. I didn't really give any thought to this before. I'm flying by the seat of my pants. But we went into our relationship with different expectations. Mm-hmm. And there's another component of that, which was my own personal insecurity. You watching at home, we get a lot of comments on how beautiful Alicia is. We don't get a lot of comments on how handsome Jonathan is. That's okay.
I think you're getting a flood of them.
Yeah, but they're pity. They're pity comments. They're like, oh no, you're good. You're attractive, sure. I felt in a lot of ways, especially during the first year of our marriage, disproportion, not just in attractiveness, but I had a hard time feeling good enough for you. You were so accomplished and you were so driven and you were so motivated and so able and capable. Mm-hmm. And I was not without accomplishment, and I was, I had my strengths for sure, but I was a man child, or as they call them in the Jungle Book, a man cub. You were in a hurry to grow up and didn't really have a childhood, and I was delaying adulthood as much as I possibly could for as long as I could. And so our relationship, I felt inadequate. You were more sexually experienced than I was, and I had a lot of insecurity about my own physical appearance, where it was hard for me to be sexual unless I felt attractive. And so if I was working out consistently, then I felt very sexual. And if I wasn't, and if my body was kind of going, that didn't matter to you. And that's the beautiful thing about you, is that none of that mattered and never did. But it was hard for me because I was attracted to you, but I didn't feel attractive. And I wasn't comfortable in my own skin, and I didn't want to be sexual. And to you, that registered very, very much as a rejection.
Right. Well, and so back up a little bit. Yes, stereotypically, your high desire partner is stereotypically the male, and the low desire partner is the female. But I think what is valuable is talking about the challenges of those partners, regardless of their gender, because I feel like the challenges are the same. And so you had these insecurities that, frankly, I wasn't even aware of, that you didn't even tell me about until we were married for almost a decade.
Listen, so mistakes were made.
Mistakes were made, and that's fine. But I think that's where we can get into talking about, okay, here were our challenges, here were the behavior patterns that helped, here were the behavior patterns that exacerbated them, right?
Yeah.
Because you didn't even feel comfortable enough to say those things to me, even though I genuinely didn't care.
Yeah.
And it was your, it was your insecurities. It wasn't even insecurities. It wasn't something I was putting onto you.
No. And there's a lot of,
but those are very vulnerable conversations. And then you go back to like, well, that's not how men are supposed to be. That's not how they should show up. And so for you, shame is very triggering. Like that's one of the places you go to.
Yeah.
And not to take everything back to personality types, but we kind of all have our coping mechanisms. Like shame is a go-to emotion for you, while anger and judgment is a go-to emotion for me. So
way to own that. That's beautiful. Well, and you see these in LGBT relationships. You see these in male-female relationships. And in our case, just like in so many things, for a heterosexual relationship, there are kind of like norms, and then there's our marriage.
Which is the exact opposite of everything.
Where I'm very much stereotypically the woman, in a lot of, and you're stereotypically the man, just in our views, in our needs, and once again, and I say that when I talk about stereotypes, I don't believe men are from Mars and women are from Venus. I don't believe men are this way and women are this way. One, because our marriage is living proof of that. First of all, if one partner has a higher sex drive than another, that's normal. And there's nothing shameful about having a stronger libido or having less, or it's all a spectrum, right? The real issue is, are you talking about it? And are you talking about what's really going on? And
is it safe to talk about it?
And is it safe to talk about it? And in our marriage, it was safe to talk about it, but I was still too scared to do it. And that's the insidious thing about shame and insecurity, is I was qualified to help a lot of people with their shame and insecurity. And anytime I struggle with anything, there's the nagging little voice that says, you're a fraud, you're an imposter, you're a hypocrite. No, I'm just human. And the fact that I'm able to help people and have successfully helped people doesn't make me immune from the very things that I'm helping people with.
Right.
I would help people through their shame so they could be open and vulnerable, and it was still too scary for me to do.
Yeah.
There was such a fear of rejection. How do you admit, as a man, that you're not as interested in sex as often as your wife? Because literally everyone on the planet would tell you, what is wrong with you? At least that's the thought. Why would you not want to be intimate with this woman all day, every day? And part of it was insecurity, not feeling attractive. Part of it was I literally have this biological thing where What you could tell me, you could tell people I'm fine with I'm good every what? What's my cycle?
3 days.
3 days.
72 hours.
Right? It is if we have sex, I'm good for 3 days. The next day you could be like, hey, and I'd be like, we could just snuggle.
Snuggle up against.
And some of you right now are going, what is wrong with you? But that is exactly why I was so ashamed of it. And you are, or at least were, because, lots of things have happened, but you were every day, several times a day, Are you okay that I'm saying this on our channel? We can edit this out. And it was very hurtful to you that I wasn't. But we didn't have the conversations.
Well, what was hurtful is that you weren't talking to me about it.
Yeah.
And I could tell something was going on, and every single time I would bring it up, you wouldn't talk to me about it.
Or I would give some half-assed excuse. It's not that I would just stare at you stone-faced.
Right,
but,
but it wasn't real.
I would brush it off. Yeah, it wasn't real. Normalizing that this is whatever your situation, whatever your relationship, one of you is probably going to want it more. And want it more often. And it doesn't mean you love your partner any less or that one of you is less attracted to the other. It just means you're different. And that's okay. Clear, honest, safe communication is key and essential. Mm-hmm. And for us, part of the healing journey, which we're still on, by the way, there are times when you will tell me about the hurt that you still carry, and I have to reap what I've sown without getting defensive, without pushing back, without trying to guilt or shame you or get you to be different. I have to make it safe for you to still be hurt.
Right. And that safety in intimate relationships is what's imperative.
Yeah.
And not in our situation, but in so many people's situation, there hasn't been safety, or there has been a lot of shame or guilt. I mean, stereotypically, it's the man who demands it, and then the woman who feels an obligation to have duty sex and things like that. Or if there is, and quite often there is body insecurity there for women, especially with, childbirth and things like that. But even more than that, at the end of the day, women are just touched out, especially if you have little kids. It's stop touching me.
That meme, do my breasts belong to my baby, my husband, or to me?
Right. So there's all of that in there. And so it's having those safe conversations, if there is the space to have safe conversations. Yeah. And if you can't do that one-on-one, get some support, get some help. Because if it's going to be a long-lasting, meaningful relationship, you need to eventually be able to have them.
Yeah.
And recognize the needs of everyone that come into play. And it's not uncommon for people to say, well, men need sex, but women don't. And I would say, a certain personality type, it is how they communicate love. Yeah. It's not, and everybody needs love, but it is how they communicate love, right?
Well, and being with you gave me a lot more empathy for husbands, because I tend to sympathize with and understand a lot more on a lot of issues where wives are coming from, because their personalities gel with mine. Because there were times where
they need and value the same things, and you're like, I totally get that. I need and value that too.
Exactly, and the idea of duty sex, I used to think these guys were just jerks who just wanted to get their jollies, right? And then I was with you, and there were a couple times where, it felt like duty sex to me until I checked myself. I'm like, this isn't duty sex. She wants to connect.
Right.
She wants love and connection, and this is the way for it. And I can't tell you how many husbands I meet with in therapy who the wife will say, he just sees me as an outlet, for his sexual needs, and I don't feel loved and cared for. And then the husband says, she doesn't want me. And not just in a sexual way, I don't feel loved, I don't feel desired, I don't feel cared for, because for him, it's not about an orgasm. He could go in the closet or the shower and make that happen. Mm-hmm. It's about
the connection.
Because when we make love, I feel connected.
Right.
And that's not happening. And it hurts. So I would say normalize it. Have the conversations.
Normalize the difference in desire.
And strip away the expectations of this is what a man is, this is what a woman is. Who are you? What are your needs? And communicating that to your partner. And there are times where it's not duty sex. It's, hey, I'm not super feeling it, but I'm not opposed to it. And I'm happy to please you because I care about you. And I'm happy to connect in this way. And then there are other times where it's, hey, I want to do this, and oh, you're not feeling it. I'm going to respect that, right? And give you that space and not smother and overwhelm you. It looks different for every couple, but you navigate it together.
Right.
And if this has been an issue in your relationship, just like in ours, there is healing there. There is closeness that can be restored there, and this is the route to take.
All right, if you enjoyed this video, check out the video, What to Do If Your Husband is Addicted to Porn. Or wife. We're not sexist here.
We're not. If you enjoy Jono laying out all of his skeletons videos, that's the one to watch.
Check it out.
How do you navigate sexual differences in your relationship? Let us know in the comments below. What would you like us to address in our next segment? Let us know in the comments below. As always, keep shining because we need your light. And look, here's that next video where I just lay out all my stuff.
But not that stuff.
No, that's my OnlyFans.